Hello, everybody. John Michael here from Hugo Coffee Roasters. I am the head roaster here. I do know it says Claudia McMullen, who is our owner at the bottom of the screen, but we're just using her computer. And for today, it's going to be me, and I'm going to show you guys how to make an amazing cup of French press coffee using Hugo Coffee. First thing we want to do is get our water going. We want to bring our water to a boil. We'll go ahead and get that started. Next thing we want to do is weigh out our coffee. So today we're using Bonafido, which is our house dark roast and probably our most popular coffee that we have. So we'll just open this up. There we go. And for French press, what we want to do is we want a 1 to 12 coffee to water ratio. So today what we're going to do is use 50 grams of coffee and 600 grams of water to brew that coffee with. So we're just going to go ahead and weigh our 50 grams of coffee. And there we go. One thing I also like to do is purge our grinder in case you're going from one coffee to another so that you don't mix those two coffees up. So what we're going to do is take a tiny little handful of coffee and run it through our grinder so it clears out anything that was in there before. Our water in our kettle is now at a boil. I'm going to go ahead and transfer that into our gooseneck kettle here, which is going to help us pour the water a little more gently, a little more slowly, which is something we're going to want to do to not over extract our coffee. All right. So when we make coffee, our water, when we start brewing, we would like it just off of boiling. So depending on where you live and what elevation you're at, the temperature is going to be very different, which is why I like to recommend for French press doing a full boil. And by the time I pour it into this carafe and we start using that water to make our coffee, it's going to be right where we want it, right underneath boiling, right at the sweet spot. So we're going to go ahead, get our coffee right into our French press. Now for our coffee, I'm using the Baratza home grinder, their entry-level Encore grinder. We have it set on grind level 30. That's what we like to use for French press. And we want it to be a medium coarse grind. So something coarser than you would use for your home drip machine, but not as coarse as something you may use for a cold brew or for a percolator pot or a mook pot. All right, so we've got our 50 grams of coffee in here. What we want to do first is we're going to bloom our coffee. We're going to soak our coffee grounds, let the gases from the freshly roasted coffee to escape. And how we do that is we're going to pour twice as much water as coffee that we started with. So since we started with 50 grams of coffee, I'm going to tare my scale. We're going to slowly pour in 100 grams of water. And I like to pour really slowly because what we're trying to accomplish here to make sure that all the coffee grounds are nice and saturated. There we are. Usually let that sit and kind of bloom for 30 seconds or so. And you can tell when the blooming's done is because the coffee will start to drop back down. And right now, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but our coffee is rising in there. And we have, it looks like it's half full, but that's mostly just the coffee rising up. And when we stir this, it's going to settle back down. So it's been about 30 seconds. And what we're going to do is we're just going to slowly stir this coffee and make sure all the grounds are nice and saturated. Okay. Now our next step, we're going to introduce our water right here. We're going to start our timer, and we're going to time for 4 minutes. So we're going to start that, and we're slowly going to pour our water until we get to 600 grams of total water. And what I like to do when I'm pouring is just rotate my French press, pour slowly, and try to just layer the water on top of any of the grounds that are rising up, because those are the grounds that are kind of less saturated than others. So the dark spots or any clump, we're going to pour over the top of. All right, now we've reached 600 grams of water. We're going to go ahead and put the top to our French press on, keep all the heat in there, but we do not want to plunge yet. Now we're going to wait. We started our timer when we started introducing water after stirring. 4 minutes from that point until we're going to start plunging. A few things that I would like to talk about while we are waiting for our coffee to steep is if you don't have a grinder, we do offer all of our coffee ground in a drip offering, whole bean, or French press. So if you buy coffee from us online, you have the option to choose a French press if that's what you're going to be using, and we'll go ahead and grind that coffee perfectly just for you. A lot of places, if you read when you're making a French press, will recommend that you use a wooden spoon over a stainless steel spoon. We are in our warehouse right now, and this is all we had, so this is going to work just fine. The reason you'll see a wooden spoon and why a wooden spoon can typically be recommended is just because metal on the glass can cause microfractures in the glass, and then after use of hot and cold, the glass can break. So that's why a lot of times you'll see people using wooden spoons. I would probably recommend using a wooden spoon, but you're not going to affect your coffee using a stainless steel bar spoon, just like what we're using. I'm going to go ahead and take the mug I'm going to drink out of. I'm going to pour a little bit of our hot water right in there. What that's going to do is warm up the mug for us. So when we pour our coffee in, it's not going to take all of the heat from the coffee to warm up the mug. The mug's already going to be nice and warm. Coffee's going to be ready to go. Once we plunge our coffee, a little trick I like to do, put it in a carafe if you're not going to drink all the coffee right at first. Set it aside, but we do want to get the coffee out of the French press and away from the grounds that are left, because that will mean more brewing time, which is going to bitter the coffee a little bit. So as soon as we plunge, we're going to want to get all of the coffee out of there. If we're not going to be serving it right up, I usually like to set it in a little carafe or something and set it aside so I can slowly drink my coffee and read a book or whatever you're going to be doing for the day. Let's see. This coffee is our bona fide dark roast. It is a 2-bean blend from coffees from Colombia and Brazil. It's probably my favorite coffee to use for the French press, but you can use any coffee that you would like, whatever you prefer. The French press, what is really nice about it is it creates a really thick, a really rich, really bold cup, which is something that a lot of people like. So I typically like to use coffees that kind of mimic that, coffees that are going to be a little bit more syrupy, have more body, and a little bit more bold flavors. So this is the coffee that I prefer to use for our French press, but any coffee offering is going to work just fine. So we're getting very close to our 4-minute timer being up. I'm going to go ahead and take this off of the scale for our plunge, and we are at our 4-minute mark now. So we're going to slowly push this down. We don't want any of the grounds to escape up. So a nice, gentle, slow push. And a good way to know if you've got a good grind setting is if you go to push and with one finger that coffee shoots all the way down, that means your grind setting is probably too coarse, not enough resistance there. At the same time, you got to take your whole hand and put your shoulder, your body weight into it. Probably a little bit too fine, probably not going to be a good grind setting for your French press. So I like to say around 10 to 15 pounds of pressure to push down and slowly push that down is going to be absolutely perfect. All right, so I'm going to dump our water out right here. And we're going to replace that with a lovely dark roast coffee from Hugo Coffee Roasters. And that's how you make the perfect cup of French press coffee. That's all my time. You guys enjoy. Have a good day.